In the early 1930s, Hembury, a prehistoric hill fort in East Devon, underwent a comprehensive archaeological investigation. Dorothy Liddell and her team worked hard to document and archive their discoveries, but with her early death in 1936, followed by the outbreak of the Second World War and subsequent economic hardship, Hembury Hill Fort became largely forgotten. Tree growth and scrub eventually covered the site so that it was no longer prominent within the landscape, its secrets known only to a few. In the 1980s, Malcolm Todd excavated the site in order to examine the correlation between the late Iron Age occupation and its subsequent Roman phase. Then, in 2010, on the death of its owner, the future of Hembury became uncertain. The family discussed putting it up for sale, but a chance discussion with a cousin was to launch a new era. Carol Jevons, a Devonian with a deep sense of history, decided to embark on a programme of management that would remove it from the at-risk category with English heritage. With the help of various bodies, Carol commissioned an ecological survey which resulted in an exciting focus on Hembury's archaeological past. This is his story.
My name is Carol Jevons. My cousin Val married John Gundry. He lived at the Grange, Broad Hembury, and when he died in 2010, Valerie inherited the fort from him. The first time I set eyes on Hembury was in 2011 with my cousin Donald. We went up and started walking in, got lost, didn't see the centre at all. We were walking around looking at trees and thinking, gosh, this is very overgrown. What on earth is this all about? And cousin Donald said, well, I think we've had enough time up here. We didn't even get to the first ditch. We just realised it was big. In the meantime, the family solicitor had quizzed us and Val on what are we going to do with it, and it was suggested that it should go on the market. The estate agents came out. I was visiting Valerie because of her dementia. And one day she came up with the idea that she thought the fort was rather special and it shouldn't pass out of the family just like that. Should we be selling it? And that was quite a conversation to have with Val. She knew it was very important, and the fact that she was always very keen to go up there or try to go up there. And we went up there quite a few times with her, and she loved walking around it. We realised it really was something which resonated highly in her capacity that she had left. And also there was something odd about it. It was quite exciting, it really was.
What do you think?
Oh, it's too much then.
It's too much, exactly, it's all too much.
Before we started all the work, of course, we had to have many surveys under the rules of engagement with Natural England.
My name is George Greenshields. I'm an ecologist, and I have a company called Ecologic, which I operate with two partners, and we do anything ecological in the southwest. When I was brought in to help Natural England put together a high-level stewardship scheme, because Hembury Fort has not been recognised as an important site, and previous funding for fencing and work on the site had fallen through, and high-level stewardship through Natural England was seen as the funding source for doing good works and protecting the archaeology of the site. And so that went ahead, and we were able to put together a high-level stewardship agreement, and that involved habitat survey to see what's there, and we did a thing called the National Vegetation Classification, NVC classification, to classify the habitats, to see how important they were, how diverse they were, and we also did surveys for protected species, which includes bats, dormouse and birds. The whole project is very much a partnership between the AONB, Natural England, Devon County Council, the local archaeologists, and obviously Carol is the landowner. And my job really was to provide a baseline survey for what's actually there already. So we did a baseline ecological survey. It is a much loved site. A lot of local people have associations with it going back many years. And although it is a private site, they have enjoyed free access. Everyone in the team has pulled together and done a marvellous job. And a very important part of our job was sharing information. So whatever we've done, we've advertised in local parish magazines and we've put posters up on the site trying to explain what our aims are. And we've had remarkably few people complaining or worried about it, and I can see the most amazing views being opened up and can see the reasons for the actual work that we've done. It is actually private land. There is a footpath that comes up onto the site from the southern end, but it goes round a small part of the plateau and goes back down again. So currently there is no open access. It's not Crow Act land. It is private land. It's only from Carol's generosity and from his previous relations that the people can enjoy the site. I think a lot of people using the site don't actually realise it's not open access land, but it's never been an aim to prevent access. What we've had to do is slightly control access for public safety, especially when works are being carried out. But the general public reaction has been entirely favourable, which is a great credit to Carol and people managing the site. From the archaeological point of view, it was really important to prevent damage to the underlying archaeology, and lovely though the trees are, the roots do damage the archaeology. It's interesting looking back at the 1930s and 40s air photographs, because the site had very few trees on it 60 years ago. So the majority of the trees we're looking at and the majority of the trees we're taking off are less than 50 years old. What we've been very careful to do is to go around and we've marked all the ancient and interesting trees, and they will be left. I've really enjoyed working on Hembury, and everyone within the team has pulled with equal weight to achieve what we have done. We're very lucky to have a very good contractor on the site who's done an amazing job. It's been very important not to damage the ramparts and the plateau in any way with heavy machinery, and we've been able to do the job with great sensitivity, I think. Some of the larger trees have been pollarded for public safety because they had fungal rot, and what the contractor has done is to coronet prune 2 very large mature beech trees, and they become works of art really. They're sculptural in their own right with a raggedy top to encourage the trees to decay and die on their feet, and as they die on their feet they become even better habitat for mosses, lichens, ferns, hollows for bats, birds and so on. In summary, I feel very proud to have been part of an exciting and ongoing project, and all credit to the owners involved.
With the ecological survey completed, along with the continuing removal of scrub, a new phase of investigation can commence. Under the guidance of 2 eminent archaeologists and using the modern practice of geophysics, a map of Hembury's subsurface archaeology is created without invasive digging. Francis Griffith, who for many years was resident archaeologist at Devon County Council, and Eileen Wilkes, Principal Academic for Archaeology at Bournemouth University, together with a team of volunteers from the Devon Archaeological Society, examined the hill fort's enclosure. The area is carefully measured out and then subsequently walked in systematic parallel lines. The instruments can detect buried features whose physical properties contrast with their surroundings, and these readings can then be rendered as image maps. It will be a while before the information becomes available, but in the meantime, the aerial use of LiDAR, a form of radar using lasers, reveals the layout of the ramparts.
My name's Jim Causley, and I'm a folk musician and singer from East Devon. I grew up just outside Wimpole, and I'm very passionate about this part of the world, and being involved with folk and traditional music ties in very neatly with my interest in local history, especially parts of history that I feel have been a bit neglected, even though they're fascinating and I would love more people to know about them. One point of history that kick-started my fascination was the battle at Fenny Bridges during the Western Rebellion, and that got me into looking at local history. And you cannot ignore the presence of Hembury Hill Fort looming over this whole part of East Devon. It just draws the eye, and then it draws you to go and explore it. I was in the museum in Exeter one day and I came across the section that's all about the Neolithic and finds that have been found in Devon, and there was the Hembury Bowl, the Gabbro Bowl. and I was just so fascinated with the story of it, that the clay it was made from had come from the lizard. So that was an impetus for writing a song, which actually turned out to be a whole album. It's a very inspiring landscape, Hembury Hill Fort, these huge ditches and mounds and the sheer scale of it, and then the view. I've always enjoyed high places. If you need to get away from the parts of life that might distract you, it always seems helpful to get somewhere high. I think there must be a primeval urge within us to get to a height. Well, the part that is inspired by Hembury is a traditional song in its original form. It's got various names. One name is The Foolish Shepherd, and the chorus is Blow the Windy Morning. And standing on the top of Hembury, you do get that feeling of being up somewhere high in the blustery winds, and I just love the tune of that particular version of the song, so I set my words to that tune. Then to find out about the history of it in the Royal Albert Memorial Museum in Exeter really ignited my interest, and that's when I began writing the song.
Blow the windy morning, blow the winds I own, speed away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow, and it's blow the windy morning, blow the winds I own, and it's speed away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow.
Now, I know you're particularly passionate about Hembury, Tom. What is it about Hembury Hill Fort that captures your imagination?
I mean, I guess I feel truly honoured to be a curator in a museum that has the objects from Hembury. You know, whether it's a particular bowl like this, beautiful object, or the fact that Hembury is just one of the most iconic archaeological sites in Devon. You know, this is a real star piece. This is saying right at the start of prehistoric Devon, they could make objects as beautiful as this. You know, it fills me with awe and wonder.
Well, this is really exciting for me to actually get to see it up close. I wrote this song which was inspired by this bowl. So when I first discovered this, I was fascinated. Hembury Hill Fort's not all that far from where I live. I'm quite familiar with it. And to read about this bowl being from Hembury, but also in a way not as well. So the clay it's made of is from Cornwall.
You're quite right. This gabbroic clay can trace the geology in the clay back to the lizard. There's only one place that it can come from. But we don't know whether that means the clay came from the lizard and they transported it all the way over to Hembury and then they made the bowl, or whether they made the bowl on the lizard and, you know, this delicate thing they then managed to transport all the way to Hembury.
And are there many other pots or ceramics on Hembury made of the same material?
There's a few. There's a lot more that were made out of local clay, so it wasn't the only sort of pottery they had. Everyday pottery was made out of local clay, but there was something. According to potters, it's a lovely material to work. It fires really well. These people they weren't using modern kilns, obviously. They were using essentially bonfires. But the minerals that are mixed in with this clay really help with that process. So, yeah, it's a really good quality clay.
Do you know whereabouts on Hembury Fort it was found?
So it was found in one of the trenches that belonged to the earliest phase of Hembury. So that's a phase I would say belongs to the Neolithic period, so the very first farming people. And it's a phase that we can't see at all today. It's all the earthworks that we see today were later, several thousand years later. So this bowl was found as part of the excavations by a wonderful lady called Dorothy Liddell and her team, carried out in the 1930s, who were the first people to investigate the site in a serious archaeological way. And in fact, it's the first intensive archaeological excavation in Devon. Really groundbreaking. This pot was found in one of the pits that they uncovered. We don't really know whether that pit was part of marking a kind of special occasion or whether it was a rubbish pit and they were sweeping up stuff that had broken. You know, it's such a special bowl that I'm inclined to think it's part of a ceremonial process, but I might well be wrong.
And what would you like to see happen there with future developments?
I mean, it is such an amazing site. You know, it commands views over Devon. It will, you know, it's great that areas are being cleared so you can get those views, but just, I suppose, to make it more accessible to people. You know, I've been there a few times and I love visiting it. So if it was possible for more people to do that, that would be great.
It's a great revelation. I've been walking around that place since 2010, and it suddenly opened up. Nature had just closed in on it completely. You saw the wood, but you couldn't see the bones of the building. And the building of those banks, wow, in Neolithic time, in Iron Age time, you put yourself in their position, standing up on their hill fort, and they could see Devon, and they ruled Devon from there. And you see why they put it there. And there you are with your piece of bone and your bit of flint, and they say, right, we're going to move thousands of tons of soil and put them up there, and we're going to make a big ditch here, and we're going to do it 3 times around this hill. And then the Romans came along, trotted in there, and they turned it into their signal station. Very useful, wonderful spot. I hope to be involved with Hembury for at least another 10 years, if not more. Having got this project off the ground, we've certainly achieved a huge amount in the last few years. And I'm so pleased that the sleeping giant has been awoken again. I couldn't have done it without the help of the committee. We've managed to secure the future of such an important site, if not the most important hill fort site in Devon.
When first we were farmers and went to work the land, we changed the course of history then with a scythe in our hand. And then that we turned mason and built with heart and soul the chisel guides the potter's hand. Behold the Gabbro ball, blow the windy morning, blow the winds I-oh, speed away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow, and it's blow the windy morning, blow the winds I-oh, and it's speed away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow. Dunonia remembers we shared a common